In chapter 1, Caitlin writes that God's grace is the undeserved goodness and love that he gives us. And in Ephesians 2:7, Paul writes, "Now God has us where he wants us, with all the time in this world and the next, to shower grace and kindness upon us in Christ Jesus." Through Jesus, God showers us with grace and kindness, and the deeper understanding that we gain of God's grace and kindness for us. There is nothing we can do to make God love us any more or any less. The more free we become to stand secure. We are going to hear a powerful testimony from Tina, who learned to find her identity in Christ, and then from Caitlin, more on how we can stand secure.
Finding my identity in Christ has been a journey. In high school, grade 9 and grade 10, I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety. A lot of my depression came from not feeling like I was good enough and not fitting in. You know, I was different. I wasn't like the popular girls. I didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes, and I was very awkward. Like, I couldn't make friends as well as like everybody else. So that was kind of my spiral down. I didn't feel like I was good enough for my parents. I felt like I didn't meet their standards, and that's what made me feel so low. And then going into grade 11, things started to get a little bit better. You know, I started making a little bit more friends. But ultimately, I started to depend on people for my happiness, which was a mistake, a huge mistake, because, you know, people will let you down and that will like disappoint you. So when I started putting my happiness on Christ and depending on him, that's when things started to turn around for me. So I started my journey of depression from grade 10 to 11, and then things started to go a bit better. And then in grade 12, I went spiraling back down because the depression came back a little bit. The wanting to fit in, wanting to be popular started to come back, and I wanted to experience what it's like to fit in, I guess. So I started partying, I started drinking. It was not good at all because that led to other problematic situations. In grade 12, in my senior year, I was sexually assaulted by someone I trusted, someone that was very close to me. And that in itself was like a downfall. I fell right back into depression. I didn't know who to turn to. I felt so betrayed, and I felt like I couldn't say anything because nobody would believe me. So that ultimately resulted in me trying to find myself in the wrong places, trying to find validation in the wrong places, because I was so empty inside. I wanted to fill a void. So I started looking in the wrong places. And eventually I was just like, enough is enough. You know, I can't keep doing this. This is not what life is supposed to be like. So I started looking for my happiness in Christ. And through him, I was able to become a better person and to better myself. And I started to begin to love myself again, and forgive myself, because I really hated myself for what happened. Even though it wasn't my fault, I felt like I could have done something, you know, to stop it, even though the situation was really out of my hands. Around this time, I was struggling with bitterness. I was very angry, and that started to take a hold of my life, really. And I remember I was just sitting in my room after I got the news that my case was dismissed. And I was like, God, if you could just use me in some way, please, like, I just need you. And after that, he just began to heal me. And I've never experienced more peace in my life. I don't think I could have found that anywhere except through him and in him. So I have found my identity in Christ after trying to fit in for years and trying to be someone I'm not. I've accepted myself. I've come to accept myself and really started to love myself because he loves me and I'm accepted in, he accepts me for who I am. And that's why I can stand secure in my identity in Christ. If I could say one thing to you girls, you don't have to try to find your worth and value in other people and what other people think like I did. You can just stand secure in your identity in Christ and love who you are for yourself. By doing this has helped me not to value people's opinions too much and not to care and just to be myself and love myself for who I am, because if you don't love yourself, who else is going to do it for you, you know? So.
Stand secure. The powerful love of God and the good news of the gospel needs to be experienced by us in our own hearts first, before we can take it out into the world. We've got to know it, and we've got to be able to stand secure in our own lives in that kind of love. But in order to do that, we need to think about the way that we see ourselves and the way that we see others. See, if we know that we are loved to the point that Jesus went to the cross, we'll begin to see other people that way too. It's important for us to think about the way that we are shaped in our thinking by our culture and our society. Do you believe that every life is of equal value? God does, because when he sent Jesus, it was for every life. But in our culture and our society, the truth is we give certain value to certain kinds of people. When we walk down the street and we pass a prominent looking doctor or business person, we tend to put a different label on them than we would on the guy sitting on the side of the street with the sign that says he's needing some help with money. See, culture is a sneaky teacher. It affects us in all kinds of ways, and it's constantly teaching us things to believe about ourselves and about people. What are some of those cultural messages that you're receiving about yourself and your own value? See, it's hard to see yourself as so loved when the culture is telling you, you are so not enough. All of the advertisements that's filling your mind every day, the social media that you're checking out daily, scrolling, it's telling you you don't have enough. You don't look good enough. You need to just work out a little more. And those messages are shaping the way you think about yourself and shaping the way you think about other people. But when we bring it back to the truth of the gospel that you are so loved, as that becomes your new way of thinking, that becomes the way you act in the world. One thing that will change the way that you see yourself is by keeping a gratitude journal. I started doing this a few years ago, and it has absolutely changed the way that I see myself. I keep lists. I keep sticky notes all over the place on my dashboard, in my bedroom. I'm constantly writing the little things that I'm thankful for, and I'm acknowledging that God is giving me those things. When I stop to acknowledge them, I feel like God is giving me things. I feel favored. I feel rich. I feel loved. I feel blessed. It begins to change the way that I think and I see myself. And this empowers us to change the way that we see the world and to love the people around us as we stand secure in the love of Christ.
After reading through chapter 1, take some time to reflect on what this could mean for your life. What problems might arise in a person's life if they claim to believe something, but they do not act like they believe it? Can you think of things you claim to believe that do not affect the way you live and the choices you make? If a person truly believes they are valuable because they were made that way, and nothing they can do will change their value, how should this affect the way they live? As we heard in Tina's testimony, God helped her to stand secure, and He wants to do the same for us.